what I would like to do with this presentation is to give you guys a brief understanding of what we do with our one-on-one closeout teaching progression. The game itself, which they call modern basketball, has turned into last 15-20 years almost. The speed has been at a very high level. The pace of the possessions are at a very high level, and all of the actions are, of course, it's not a walk the ball and play any kind of a half court offense, but turns into a lot of full court fast break situation, a lot of secondary or transition offense actions happening, and all those actions eventually ended up in a closeout situation. And as coaches, we are looking for what kind of closeout situation we are trying to get. I know the understanding of, we would like to have, if we have a big player, we would like to have a post-up situations, and post-up situations, what can we create out of those post-ups? Or if we have good guards and a good rollers or a good pop bigs, we would like to end up in a pick and roll situations. And in another level, we start teaching our offensive players how they are going to react into defensive situations. But at the end of the day, whatever we want to establish within our offensive system, we always end up in a closeout. Now, in this presentation, that's what I would like to focus on. But first of all, let's talk about what does closeout mean to me, at least in this point. What does closeout mean is the closeout refers to when an offensive player receives the basketball and a defensive player closes the space, which I highlighted the space because that's what I'm going to focus on the rest of the presentation. Space between themselves and the player they are guarding to get into a better defensive position. The overall goal for the defensive player is to take away any kind of an offensive player's ability to shoot, pass, or dribble penetration to the rim. So what we are looking for is right now, the question would be, how many different types of closeouts we have. And I'm not necessarily, and I don't want to confuse you guys, I'm not focusing on the defensive end. I'm going to mainly focus on the offensive end. We want our offensive players to understand that the type of closeouts that the defensive player is going to provide. That throughout the course of the game, it is possible that a defensive players could end up guarding any position from guard to post after scrambling and rotating on defense. So this is what you want to try to establish on an offensive end. Whatever the action that you are trying to do, you're trying to get some kind of a mismatch. You are trying to force defensive rotation, and you're trying to get some kind of an advantage for your own offense. And it is very important that the offensive player at this point must read the distance. And I highlighted that because it's super important for us when it comes to teaching our offensive players to understand the distance of the closeout that they are going to attack. So with saying this, I categorize closeout into two types, which are short distance closeouts and long distance closeouts. Now I'm gonna share what I mean by short and long distance closeouts. To me, short distance closeout is when the defensive player has to rotate back from one pass away or shorter than one pass away distance to the offensive player that meets with the basketball. And I highlighted two actions here. In the first diagram, the offensive player meets with the ball. One of those basic actions that usually there's some kind of a cut towards the basketball. Defense is, let's say, playing at a help side defense, and the offensive player, number one, makes a cut to the top of the key, and the defensive player closes out in a short distance, one pass away kind of a distance. And in the second diagram, we see some kind of a dribble drive action happening, and defensive player is about to jab and recover back to the offensive player, which in this case, offensive player is spacing out. I just wanted to share these two diagrams with you to give you an understanding of what I mean by short distance closeout. Now, let me show you with the real actions that what I mean by short distance closeout and how we react into it from our game situations. So these clips are from this year throughout. Turn this volume down. Yeah. So we have a dribble action happening right now, right in the middle of the court, and we have our offensive player positioning herself, and she's going to react towards where the ball is going to happen, forcing her defense to jab and recover to a short distance. In the second example, again, another drive happening in a short distance, not under control, and our offensive players are able to attack immediately. I'll provide you another example. Those were all drive and kick situations. These examples are mainly focused on the passing action. This pass happens, bad closeout, allows offensive player to catch and shoot immediately. Now I want to skip these. I want to skip these clips a little quicker because I have bigger. I put more clips so we can sit down and detail and analyze those clips very easily. Now long distance. Let me go to the long distance. What long distance means is when the defensive player has to rotate from a 2 passes away or more than 2 passes away distance to the offensive player that meets with the ball. So in this situation, what we are looking for in the very first diagram, you see the offensive players attacking towards a baseline, bringing the weak side out towards the ball, and kicks out, and we have this long recovery. So 2 passes away or more than 2 passes away situation that we created with a baseline drive. In this situation, same thing, drive and kick situation happening. Number two, offensive player is dribbling all the way. So in this scenario, X2 is not able to contain the ball, so needs X1's help, and X2 is recovering to the new offensive player that meets with the ball at the corner. So again, the distance-wise is 2 passes away or more than 2 passes away. That's what I mean by long distance closeout. So we are looking for some kind of a long defensive rotation. I have a couple examples for you to give you a better understanding of what long distance closeout. So we are forcing defensive rotation to make those long closeouts, and most of the time those long closeouts are not under control, and our offensive players reacting to those long closeouts. Those are all drive and kick situations. This is more creating, offensive player is creating herself. Another drive and kick, and forcing defense to rotate from a long distance. Now, as I said early in my presentation, I would like to focus on how we teach one-on-one closeout offense. Now, I broke it down into 4 different layers. First of all, the introduction of the new skill, 1-on-0. It's just you and the player. It's just introducing of the new skill. What do you need to do, how you need to do, type of an information that we are providing consistent to the offensive player. The second stage, as soon as we feel comfortable, okay, he or she is going to be able to do what we are looking for. Now we put a coach guides through the read and react situations. So in this situation, you have another partner coach, or you can use another player. We are just putting the offensive player into 3 different situations, which we are going to go through. And these are the guide through read and react situations. The third section is, once we feel comfortable with the second section, we move on to the third section, control advantage drills. So we design some drills that forcing our offensive players to see if he or she is going to be able to implement what he or she learned throughout those first 2 sections. And as soon as we feel comfortable, okay, and we move on to the 4th section, and let's see, and we put them into a game situation drills, the breakdown offense, literally breakdown offense, and let's see, and we would like to see how our players are going to be able to adjust themselves into those game situation drills and execute the skill set that they learn. So we have those 4 different sections. We don't push or force our players to skip these sections. And I know it is, at the end of the day, it's a long-term project that you are looking for. It is not easy for any individual or any one of us to learn any kind of a new skill set and advance immediately. So the learners has to go through some stages throughout this process, teaching process. And as a coach, I don't wanna skip any kind of a stage. Um, so let me start with the first introduction of the new skill, and I'm going to go through a couple of examples, the drills that I put it here, so that we can look at it and see what we are trying to do. I would like to use the same drills that I demonstrated before. Uh, Throughout this introduction stage, what we are looking for is it's necessary that the coaches focus on teaching their players how to move without the ball, whether it would be cutting towards the basketball or whether it would be spacing out. Within these drills, that as you guys know, that you can easily implement other different parts of the game as well. The drive and kick situation, you can easily teach spacing in and out. The first diagram, you can easily teach move without the basketball, without the basketball is moving. And what we are really focusing on here is the offensive player has to learn and execute all the necessary fundamentals, such as the footwork, shooting, dribbling, and finishing around the hoop. Now, these are the all basic stages that we would want our offensive player to go through. Now, as I mentioned about the fundamentals, what do we teach about the fundamentals? Because we don't want them to do whatever they want to do, and we want them to actually understand what short closeout looks like without putting any kind of a defense in front of them at this stage. So what we would like them to execute is two different things in terms of footwork. Catching the ball with 2-foot stop or catching the ball with 1-2 stop. And what I mean by 1-2 stop, whether it would be outside foot first then inside foot, or inside foot first then outside, I put it here wrong here, and outside foot afterwards. Now, most of the time, I get this question: which footwork is better for to teach start? Now, the very first time I started to learn how to play basketball and coach, I was taught 2-foot stop. Then later on in my learning process, I was taught 1-2 stop, and always inside outside. But then throughout my playing time, I realized most of the players are not necessarily learn the same way. I realized several of my friends were able to catch the ball with outside foot first and inside foot and catch and shoot or attack. They were way more comfortable than the other way. So what I would like to do is I would like to start with a basic. I feel like this is the basic way to start. 2-foot step, catch the ball with 2-foot step and go from there. Any kind of a left or right crossover step and just attack the hoop. And as soon as they are feeling comfortable, then you can, and I can easily move on to the second stage, 1-2 step. And again, this is the stage that I don't want to force them to go quick. I want them to first go with whatever they are comfortable, because they may be comfortable with the second stage and first stage. Whatever they are comfortable, we go with that first, then we keep building on top of it, the footwork that they have. Now, the second stage that I would like to focus on the most is finishing around the hoop. Now, I coach the guys side, I coach the girls side. There are advantages and disadvantages coaching both groups. But one thing that I realized, that finishing around the hoop in both cases, as you may experience too, there are a lot of layups the players can easily miss around the hoop, just because whether they are not comfortable making a body contact, or they are not necessarily fundamentally sound enough to go around the defender, or being able to hit the defender, observe contact, and finish with various ways around the hoop. So what we would like to focus on is, I have two series in mind. The first series is a 1 dribble series. The second one is a 2 dribble series. Again, I would like to start with where the players are comfortable at, whether it would be a 1 dribble series, whether it would be a regular layup, opposite hand layup, Euro step movement, finishing with a floater, or finishing with a pull-up jumper. Wherever they are comfortable, we start from there and keep building from that point. And 2 dribble series, Two dribble series, we have the same series, and regular layup, power layup, reverse layup, euro step, floater, and pull-up jumper. So once I start with their comfortable zone and I keep building on top of it, I would want them to understand the long dribble and the short dribble. So when they attack to those, when they attack to the rim, they need to understand, should they finish with one dribble, should they finish with two dribbles. But this is later on, if we conduct another meeting, when I start talking about the 2-on-2s and 3-on-3s and 4-on-4s, because there are going to be some help around the hoop. So but I start introducing that long dribble and a short dribble version of the dribbling series at this point, so that they don't struggle later on. Of course, the next fundamental that I would like to focus on, the shooting. Again, 2-foot stop shooting, catch and shoot, one dribble jumpers and two dribble jumpers, and 1-2 step, inside out or outside in steps, catch and shoot, one dribble jumper, two dribbles jumper. Those are the main fundamentals that I like to focus on at that stage, 1-on-0 stage. Now, once I feel comfortable about the player that I'm working, okay, so what is next? So what is next is we put coach, either myself or another coach gets into the practice. Then we start drilling our offensive players and most of the read and react situations. So read and react situations in this learning stage, the offensive players go through all the possible decision-making scenarios. And all the decision-making scenarios is, the first one is shoot when the defensive player closes out one arm distance away. So what we are looking for is, I'm trying to encourage them to get into a good balance with a 2-foot stop, let's say 2-foot stop, catch and shoot immediately. So catch the ball at a certain level and release the ball as quickly as you can. And we want them to focus on, okay, so we put in the very first diagram, you are going to see the offensive player making the cut to the top of the key to meet with the ball, and a coach here comes in and just position herself or himself in one arm distance, and we want our offensive player to react immediately with a catch and shoot. The second option is attack when the defensive player closes out less than an arm distance. So we want our coach to be a little more aggressive, get closer to the offensive player, less than an arm away distance, and we want our offensive player to react immediately. Now, what we do in this stage is sometimes coach closes out the right side, so we want our offensive player to attack to the left. Sometimes coach closes out to the left side a little more, influence the offensive player go to the right. So we want our offensive player to be able to see the coach and meet with the ball at the same time, not meet with the ball and look at the player, look at the coach about the closeout. That would be a kind of late reaction. So in the meantime, we are teaching how to see in this case the offensive player when she makes that cut. We want her to see the coach's reaction and meet with the ball and react immediately. Now the third option is pass and make a basket cut. Sorry. When the offensive player realizes that they cannot shoot or take their defender off the dribble. And these are the situations where the defense does a great job. As soon as ball meets with the offensive player, defense is right there, so offensive player struggles to even catch and shoot or attack. We don't want our offensive player to just swing the ball, try to make that jab step, we don't want all those waste of time type of movements, because within our offense, what we want is 1 second or less than 1 second. We want our offensive player to make the correct decision immediately. If she's not going to be able to make any kind of aggressive move, shooting or attacking to do, then make a pass and make that basket cut, so you keep yourself consistent and offensive threat position. And even if you are not going to be able to get this pass, at least you can make a basket cut and cut towards the ball or cut to the other side, so we keep the ball moving. Again, that's another thing that we can discuss if we do another one, the team concept wise. But this is what we are focusing on. This is what I want our offensive players to understand, that the reaction needs to be quick, as quickly as you can. So this stage is probably takes more longer than other stages, because this is the stage offensive player fully understands what needs to do, not what needs to be done against a defensive reaction. Once we feel that the offensive player, is kind of comfortable with the read and react situations, we put those in offensive players into control advantage drills. Control advantage drill, so I put exactly the same diagrams here, try to go with the same drill so that you guys are able to follow easily. So what we would like to do in this stage is I'd like to focus on the offensive players' understanding of moving without the ball. So we are working on a spacing rules as well, and as well as their ability to make the correct reads versus the defense's closeout. Again, I also focus on the offensive player's ability to execute the footwork, shooting, dribbling, passing, and finishing around the hoop. So what we do is, instead of a coach, we put actual defensive player here with the basketball. So defensive player passes the coach. In the meantime, two things happens. Offensive player makes a sprint all the way to the top of the key, moves to the top of the key, and defensive player, as soon as he or she passes the coach, defensive player closes out to the offensive player. So from here, again, we are trying to evaluate our offensive players' read and react decision making. In this scenario, what we would like to do is, we are also working on a help side or a defense at the same time. So the coach makes the dribble to the middle, and the defensive player makes a reaction jab and recover immediately, and an offensive player makes the movement. After a pass, offensive player's ability to read the defense is the most important thing at this point, whether offensive player is going to catch and shoot or attack. And the third thing is, what we are looking for is, if there is no option for offensive player to shoot or attack, then we are looking for, is she going to be, if he or she is going to be able to make the necessary quick pass and make the basket cut for a maybe immediate easy layup, or maybe a post up if we have a height advantage. If not, make the basket cut and release. So you can use a lot of different type of drills to execute these progression, but this is what we are looking for and what we would like to do with our offensive player. So in this stage, it is very important for our offensive players to execute all the necessary footwork and shooting and all the necessary fundamentals that we have been looking for. And the last stage is more about when we are really comfortable with our offensive players' ability to do things, then we put them in game situation drills. And our game situation drills are our breakdown of our offense. What we are looking for is, again, this time there is no coach involved. Most of the drills, we want our players to be able to execute things by themselves, so that we can easily position ourselves on wherever we want to position ourselves, to be able to read and to evaluate our offensive players' reaction. In this case, this drill starts with the defensive player. 3 passes happens, then ball meets with the offensive player at a little over free throw line, extended outside the 3-point line, and with a short closeout from an elbow. Most of the time it happens during the game too. Some kind of elbow closeout happening, and let's see what the offensive player is going to react. Sometimes we put them in a very usually offensive player in an advantage situation, defensive player kind of little disadvantage situation. So defensive player's back is turned towards the offense. He or she doesn't know where he is, and offensive player passes the coach and makes a sprint, makes a basketball cut all the way to the little over free throw line extended, and defense reacts. So we are looking for a lot of different fundamentals here, with the footwork, the way they are able to read the defense, then footwork, the way they catch the ball, whether if they're going to be able to read the defense with a catch and shoot or attack. So we are observing all sorts of things that we have been teaching to that offensive player. the same, different drills here, the diagonal closeouts, and let's see how offensive player is going to react. And in this scenario, for example, drive and kick situation where a defensive player has to react into that one pass away. And when the offensive player receives the catch, let's see how they are going to be able to execute, analyze the defense, and execute the fundamentals that we are looking for. Different drills here. For example, defensive player starts at the elbow with a quick pass and a closeout. Again, this is the type of a drill that there is the slight advantage goes towards the defense. There is not much advantage on an offensive player because the ball starts the defense, and defense knows when they are going to make this pass and closes out immediately. So we want our offensive player to be able to catch and pass and cut immediately and get himself or herself in a post-up situation. So there's another drill for you, exactly the same. This time, ball starts with the offensive player, but we want them to start side to side. In this case, we are forcing, we are kind of giving defensive player a little bit of an advantage, but we want our offensive player to understand the defense is tight. Offensive player is not going to be able to execute the first two things that we are looking for, which is shooting and attacking. So we want them to just make the quick pass and make the basket cut immediately for a seal, easy post up, all sorts of things. I'll show you a couple clips that I edited from our season this year from our team. Just to give you an idea about the short closeouts situations during the game, when it happens to us, how our players are executing those situations. As you see, sometimes it happens. Those closeouts happens with just moving the ball as quickly as we can and try to get some kind of an advantage. It happens in a half court, it happens in a full court situation where player meets with the ball and defense is about to close out. Sometimes happens with a lot of drive and kick situation happens. So offensive player drives, kicks it out, and new offensive player reads and reacts into the situation. So we are looking for evaluating our offensive player to be able to catch the ball and with a proper footwork, with an understanding of a long and a short dribble, an understanding of finishing around the hoop with one step or two steps. And of course, we are focusing on the way they are going to finish, whether it would be a layup, whether it would be a pull-up jumper, whether it would be a floater. Whether it would be a one dribble pull-up jumper, two dribbles pull-up jumper. We are forcing defense to consistently rotate for short closeout with the actions that we run. As you see, one of our we were fortunate enough to have a 5-man like that, 6'2", is able to shoot the ball outside the 3-point line. And I wanted to give you a different perspective of what we do and how we create short closeouts, whether it would be through extra pass, through drive and kick, through pick and roll, or through post-up situations that when the defensive team traps, we move the ball around to try to get the best closeout possible. I hope that would give you some kind of an idea what we are trying to establish with the short distance closeout. And pretty much the long distance closeout situations and the teaching progression is exactly the same way. We divide into 4. The mindset and the idea and the philosophy is exactly the same way. We start with 1 on 0. So this is an introduction of a new skill. So what we do is we use different drills. We use different drills where we we consistently put our offensive player in a situation where they are going to receive a footwork. Receive a long closeout, and we would want them to do certain type of closeout, certain type of footwork, certain type of the way they should be catching the ball, certain type of the balance that they should be establishing, and using their footwork accordingly, or shoot accordingly, or finish around the hoop accordingly. So during the stage of learning, it is very necessary that the coaches focus on teaching their players how to move without the basketball. Also, the offensive player has to learn and execute all the necessary fundamentals, such as footwork, shooting, dribbling, and finishing around the hoop. And I didn't wanna put the whole footwork and shooting and finishing around the hoop, the fundamental breakdown that I just demonstrated at the short distance closeout attack. But we have exactly the same things that we are trying to focus on to teach with one dribble one step, or one dribble two steps, or two dribble one step, two dribble two steps, finishing around the different finishing around the. It depends on our the player's ability to execute things, and their learning speed is very important. Again, we don't want to rush, we don't want to skip anything. You may say, okay, so these processes takes too long and too much most of the time, and it is energy draining, and it is a long-term project. So when do you do that? You may ask this. And what we do is we open up our season around mid-May, early in the July, and our actual season starts around with the exhibition games and everything around mid-August. So what we have is pretty much 6-7 weeks of trying to implement all the necessary individual fundamentals as well as team fundamentals, what we are trying to do with the defense and offense. And we are using these drills to utilize and make them quickly learn what we are trying to do. So that's our main focus. We would like to have that 6 to 8 weeks of teaching and forcing them to learn different things as quickly as they can. And of course, our individual training sessions usually starts after 2-3 weeks at the end of the season, which would be around like mid-April. So what we have is mid-April to mid-June. Whoever stays around the local, because the university, we are very much recruiting all over Canada, and we have only, if I'm not wrong, 3 or 4 players are actually from Calgary. Rest of the team is all over Canada. So once their final exams and everything is done, which is around late April, we don't usually see our players throughout the summer, but they usually come around mid-June, at the end of June, so that everything starts around that time. But the people that stays in Calgary, we usually start practicing with them. So that's why we have some kind of a luxury to stick with our long-term plan and long-term development plan to make sure that our players understand what they need to do within these situations. Second stage with the long distance read and react situations. So read and react situations, we put again different drills that we like to organize here. We want to teach them how to move without the ball first, so that they understand what they need to do. So this is the stage where we want them to read and react. So we put one of our coaches as a dummy defender in this situations, so that the player goes through all of the possible decision-making scenarios. The first one is shoot when the defensive player closes out 1 arm distance. The second option is attack when the defensive player closes out less than an arm distance. And the third option is pass and make a basket cut when the offensive player realizes that they cannot shoot or take their defender off the dribble. So again, we go through the same process with different drills, with different distance, a longer distance, so that then we force them to understand what they need to do in a situation like that. At this stage, it's a control advantage drills. So what we are trying to do here is we, as I mentioned to you before, we like to give our offensive player a little bit of an advantage over a defensive player, so that within this, they are able to read and react within a competitive setting. So in this stage, I like to focus on the offensive players' understanding of moving without the balls, as well as their ability to make the correct reads, and the defender its closeouts. So in this drill, offensive player passes the post and makes the movement to the top of the key area, and we will want our coach to take a dribble so that usually defense reacts into it. Just so jump and recover immediately. So the offensive player catches the ball, reads with the ball at the top of the key, and looks at the defense and reads the defensive closeout situation. So we are looking for, again, the same footwork, shooting, dribbling, and passing and finishing around the hoop techniques. With the second drill that we have, defensive player starts with the basketball at the block. Offensive player starts without basketball at the block. Defensive player passes to coach. There are two things happens immediately. Offensive player sprints outside the 3-point line, the free throw line extended, and defensive player closes out immediately. As soon as coach receives the pass, passes to offensive player. So this is, and again, the distance-wise represents the idea of as almost like a full rotation from a weak side. Once we feel comfortable with our offensive players' ability to understand and execute certain techniques against a long-distance closeout, after 3 stages later, we would like to put them in a game situation. And it is more competitive. There is almost no advantage out of it. And it's a breakdown of our drills. So I demonstrated 2 different drills here. So one of them, defensive player starts at the corner, dribbles to the middle. Offensive player sprints out to the free throw line extended area. It's this imaginary line. As soon as defender with the ball comes to this imaginary line right in the middle, passes out and closes out immediately. So offensive player catches and reads and reacts according to defensive players' closeouts. If the defense doesn't close out quick enough, fast enough, so offensive player catches and shoots. If defender closes out less than an arm, attacks. In this case, we don't have another. You can easily put another offensive player or a coach here, because the third option is if there is no offensive shooting or attacking situations happening, so she can easily pass to the coach and makes the basket cut for a steal or an easy layup. So, and these type of drills you can easily utilize to teach defense and offensively spacing techniques and tactics at the same time. So this is a offensively thinking. This is a middle attack from a corner. How would you want your offensive player to react into the ball, spacing out? This is a spacing in situation where there's a baseline attack and pass and close out immediately, and we want our offensive player to execute accordingly. I put more drills into this. So like everyone in the basketball world, that we like to run a lot of diamond and fluffy sets. So this demonstrates the idea of that imaginary down screen happening at the block. So offensive player makes a fake cut one side and cuts to the other side, so the defense, and creates some kind of a separation between the offense and defense. So defense closes out in a way that demonstrates the idea of a long closeout, and coach passes the offensive player, they go from there. So with this drill, we would like to demonstrate the idea of a help side situation. So offensive player starts with the basketball, passes to coach. As soon as offensive player passes the ball to the coach, defensive player gives a high five to the coach underneath the basket and closes out. A long closeout demonstrates the idea as a defense, demonstrate the idea as a weak side help or a full rotation help. And we would want our offensive player to be able to react accordingly. As I have been demonstrating with the drills, most of the closeouts are happening from the bottom of the court and goes all the way upward. So, but most of the closeouts during the game comes with a lot of transition situations too, and the closeouts are happening diagonally. What I mean by diagonally, for example, in this drill, what we would like to do is we position defense and offense at the half court, separate offense and defense into two, and starts from the half court. Defense starts with the basketball, dribbles all the way towards the circle, half court circle area, and the offensive player sprints in the meantime. As soon as both of them comes to the circle area, defensive player passes and closes out diagonally. And we want our offensive player to catch and attack to the hoop, and we want our defensive player to be able to close out in a way to, of course, these are all team defensive rules we are getting into. What we would like to do is we would like to keep the ball on one side so that we can establish the defensive help on the other side, and we will want our defensive player to be able to stay shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, and influence. And when it is possible, just cut off the dribble and keep the ball on that same side, but don't bring the ball to the other side. In the meantime, what we are teaching here is we are teaching to be able to take those long dribbles or short and long dribbles to create some kind of fast stop dribbles so that defensive player hesitates, stops, so that the offensive player has an advantage. If they go shoulder to shoulder, then we are teaching more how are you going to lean towards the defensive player to be able to establish a strong presence and continue to attack to the straight line towards the rim instead of not being able to use the shoulder so that the offensive player fades away from the rim. So there are different things that we are teaching and focusing on. Second drill here is exactly the same. We want to give some kind of an advantage to the offensive player. So the defensive player passes the ball, circles around the cone. The offensive player dribbles around the cones and they meet on one side. Same principles. We want our offensive player to be able to dribble straight line. We want our defensive player to make sure the offensive player is not on the straight line towards the rim. So different stuff we are teaching. But these two drills just to demonstrate the idea of closeouts sometimes, and well, most of the times actually during the game happens in a transition and a secondary break situations. It happens in a diagonal way. So we want to make sure our defense and offensive players understands this diagonal closeouts and learn how to attack and learn how to guard. I'll give you a couple of examples here. What we did this year with the long closeout situations. Again, I try to break down into several pieces. The first one is the passing options. What we do with our passes, continuous, consistent extra passes creates either a short or a long. So we are trying to find the long one actually during the game. So this, one of those try to find the perfect pass. So we are trying to find a perfect possession and a perfect pass as much as we can, which usually ends up with if we are successful, ends up with a long closeout. Force the defense into a bad rotation or a late rotation and create offense for others. These are the situations where we have been able to utilize. Most of the time, our offensive players are the way they catch the ball, the way they give hesitation to the defensive player is also very important. The body language, the way they catch the ball, the way they nod their head, maybe a little pump fake and attack afterwards, or maybe a little shooting fake so that the defensive player is hesitating for the next stage and pauses. And as soon as they pause, our offensive player reacts into it immediately. Some situation, pick and roll situation. So our league, as you see, some of the teams are really sagging off and inviting ball to go inside. Our league, most of the teams are playing pack line defense and they're just sagging it in and just staying inside the key almost, not allowing any post player to shoot, finish around the hoop, or they don't want any guard or wing to attack to the inside. So I divided into a couple of sections. Try to give you an idea and understanding of what we are trying to do with the passing options, with the drive and kick options, with the pick and roll options, with the post-up options. Now, let me tell you what we have been doing this year with our closeout offense. So what we have in our hand with this diagram is we use synergy like most of the teams in our conference. The synergy gives us a very, very good accurate analysis of what all the teams, including us, what all the teams have been doing throughout the season. So one of the category here is the time that we force defense to rotate per game. So what we are looking for is Calgary, that's my team. We ended up forcing the teams to rotate, consistent rotation, 34.7% of the time throughout the game, and this is a season average. So all these other teams have been at a very good level actually, and all these teams finished top 5, top 6 in our nation this year. So I just wanted to compare those top teams in our league and where we are and where they are. Actually, unfortunately, this team won the league this year, and unfortunately, we finished 5th. But when you look at the pie chart here, we are number 1 in this category in the nation. Of course, this also represents the idea of what we would like to do within our offense. We like to run and play at a very fast-paced tempo, consistently run, consistently drive and kick, consistently aggressive with the ball, and this is what it means actually. We are trying to get more possession out of it. We are trying to get more points out of these type of forcing defense to rotate, and possession per game wise, again, we were number 1 in the nation because of our aggressiveness. We were consistently attacking mode. We weren't just settling down for a half court and just try to execute those, this ISO situations or any kind of a half court offense. We are trying to play as fast as we can. And of course, at the end, we were able to score the most points per game throughout the nation. We average 77, 78 per game, and 24 points, usually 24 to 26 points actually came out of closeout situations. That would make us, again, we ended up being at number 1 in the league. This is my presentation so far. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. From here, I'm open to answer any question you guys have.
Thank you so much, Coach. That was great. If there's any question, let me know, please. Everybody.
I think these are the situations where if you're able to go back and think about what is my offense looks like, because at the end of the day, offense is going to, whatever you want to do it with a pick and roll or a transition or off the ball screening action or some kind of an ISO post ups or ISO at the top with your best player, with your best guard, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we are trying to create some kind of closeouts. If you would want to know more about what kind of other drills out there that you can utilize it, then again, please feel free. Maybe we can go through here, or if you don't have time, maybe I can send you all the necessary information later. You can look at it as well.
Yes, thanks. You sent me this PowerPoint. Is that same, or just you added some clips?
Yes, I added some videos and stuff.
Yeah, drills is same, yeah.
Yeah, it is exactly the same. I just edit these extra videos because I thought that I don't want to talk all the time. I just want to show some video too.
Good, yeah. So I can share that for coaches. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So you have another drills for this case, yeah. You can share it right now, or you will send to me and I will share it to coaches.
Yeah, I'll send you after this meeting.
Okay.
And you can share with whoever you want.
Thank you. There is no question. That was so clearly and great. Thank you so much for taking out your
Take care.
Hayırlı Ramazanlar.
Eyvallah kardeşim. Sana da. Eyvallah.
Thank you.